Open Your Eyes is brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.
Good morning and welcome to Open Your Eyes.
Start your morning right.
I'm Marlene Cuellar.
And I'm Asana Cayetano.
And thank you for joining us this morning.
It is the 11th of October, Marlene. Ordinarily, tomorrow would have been a holiday, but we traded that for a holiday in August instead.
Well, maybe we should advise people that if they're waking up thinking today is a holiday in lieu of what we used to celebrate on October 12th, you know, get up. You got to get to work.
You know, I thought about that, you know, and some people were asking, how comes I not hear nothing about Columbus Day holiday? And I had to tell them, well, that has since changed.
Yeah.
We gave up the 12th of October for Emancipation Day in August.
That's right.
And so we were talking about what is more meaningful, the Columbus Pan American Day holiday or the Emancipation Day. So I'm thinking from a historical point of view, that is debatable because you have people who would say yay and who would say nay, depending on, you know, which side of history they choose to subscribe to. But yeah, it's an interesting conversation.
Well, I mean, I think when you look at the history of Columbus Day, it helps a lot for people to understand why we're better fit celebrating Emancipation Day. But there are other activities that are tied around this time. And I think when we look at things like the mestizo culture and what this time of year signifies, and the Mayans as well, it also has some significance. But I think for me the bigger issue is perhaps we haven't taken enough time to talk about Emancipation Day and really get everyone to an understanding. We can't say we're going to teach people in schools, you know, we're going to be starting with the younger generation at this point in time, but definitely something that we need to build our education on.
Certainly. That's tomorrow. That's October 12th. we're in the first day of the week. It is a Monday morning. Most of us are well rested. Some would say it was a rather easy weekend, uneventful. So you should have gotten enough hours of sleep.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, I saw like slower activity on Sunday. It wasn't a no movement Sunday. But people, I guess, just adjusted to the fact that they stay in on Sundays as well. But we got a lot to discuss for today, so we're going to go ahead and get you started with some motivation. That means it's time for Eye Opener. And our Eye Opener, taken from dailyom.com, goes like this. Sometimes when we break a habit or addiction, we find ourselves missing it like a dear friend. Whenever we make the effort to free ourselves of an addiction or a habit we no longer need, we're often surprised to find ourselves missing the old pattern as we would a familiar friend. This sounds counterintuitive because we think we should instinctively gravitate toward that which is good for us. And yet, it makes a lot of sense when you consider that we humans are creatures of habit. Therefore, many of the habits we form are not conscious and are based instead on learned behavior from role models who were not always making the healthiest decisions. The only way to get to this new place is to endure a time of difficulty, which is a challenge we can confidently handle if we remember that it will lead to the change we seek in our lives. Our bodies, hearts, and minds always need time to adjust to a new way of doing things, but they will adapt and even become our allies if we remain true to our vision of a new way.
Old habits die hard. There's that expression. And it rings true because for us to be able to break a certain practice that has become so ingrained in us, in the way we think and do things, It's difficult. I'm thinking to myself, Marlene, there are times when I've tried to kick certain habits and I end up having withdrawal because I'm so used to doing certain things. I'm so used to thinking a certain kind of way that when I'm forced to change my perspective or my approach, you go back missing the old stuff, you know, and that happens in relationships, that happens in your daily activities, because as the eye opener says, we're also creatures of habit. So you fall into a particular cycle, and it's the most difficult thing, sorry, to be able to break that cycle, you know, and oftentimes being able to free yourself from what you would consider the mundane day-to-day activities allows you to be able to kind of refresh and see things differently. But you got to be able to break it first to be able to step aside and say, look, this is the big picture.
Yeah. No, I think that this is such a true eye-opener. And it goes both ways. It's when you consider that sometimes you're trying to break an old habit or even build a new one, which is moving away from a habit that you had before. And it is literally one of those situations where you have an autopilot in your brain. Your brain does A, B, C, D, and you're trying to make it do A, C, F.
Yeah.
And it is stopping it along the way each and every time. And it reinforces one of the things that I always remind myself of, that change is hard. And it requires you to push through it. But really and truly, the biggest struggle is the maintenance.
Yeah.
Because you get comfortable and then you end up right back down that path because it's tried and true and faithful and gets you results that you know. So I think that it is something that we all struggle to deal with, and it is a neurological process that we have to go through. I know our good friend Jenny Lovell has broken it down for us a few times. She says, you know, you're literally carving a new Picado road.
Yeah.
When you have been using this solid highway at this point, and it is not an easy path. But I think when you have the goal as your center, when you know why you need to keep on hacking away at whatever weeds are there to get through to this path, then you can stay motivated and stay on that path.
And we all need motivation, Marlene. We all do.
All right, so we hope that this Monday morning, maybe you wanted to get up and go out and do some exercise. Maybe you wanted to have a healthier breakfast. Maybe you wanted to be on time. Maybe you wanted to have a better mood with the kids. Today is the day you can start and keep at it. But that is our weather update for this morning. We have Francisca Wellington on the line. Good morning.
Good morning, strangers. I haven't heard you in a long while.
I know. Why is this happening? Are you avoiding us?
No, I was wondering the same thing about you.
No, we love to hear from you, and we love to get our breakdown on the weather that we'll be expecting. Looks like a beautiful day.
I have good news. Okay, so this general situation is fair and warm weather, and we'll see lots of sunshine today. I am not seeing much rainfall, and that goes for tonight too.
Okay, and what about our winds?
All right, winds will be out of the east, 5 to 10 knots, and producing slight seas, so almost calm seas.
And how hot is it going to be today?
Okay. Along the coast, I'm seeing a peak of 89 Fahrenheit, inland 95, and the Maya Mountains 82. And then overnight temperatures, 80 along the coast, 73 inland, and 66 up in the Maya Mountains.
All right. And the extended forecast, anything going to change in the days to come?
No changes until Friday. So between now and Friday, good, warm, mostly dry weather.
All right. And what about the tropics, Francisca? Anything we need to be monitoring?
Not at this time.
Okay. Well, thank you for that update. I'm glad
You're
we got
welcome.
you to deliver the good news. Sunny days ahead.
Okay.
Have a great day.
Thanks, and same to you.
Bye.
There we go. Smooth sailing until Friday.
That's
At least we have something to look forward to in terms of good weather.
That's right. So if you have to get outdoors, if you have anything planned, if you need to do laundry, you can feel safe doing so.
Get that out of the way.
All right, but of course, as you said, it is a Monday morning. There's much to discuss about big news coming out from last week and in the week ahead. So we're going to shift gears to Eye on the News.
Our first discussion that I wanted to have this morning has to do with the ongoing pandemic situation and the fact that there is growing concern among certain sectors of the society, or the society on a whole, with regards to persons who are fully vaccinated who are still dying from COVID-19. Now, we've heard a lot from the Ministry of Health in respect of underlying causes or comorbidities, as they're called, that contribute to persons who, despite the fact that they are fully inoculated, would still not survive an attack or a bout of COVID-19. And I say that because you're looking in the overall, the overall picture of, the vaccine drive. And while strides are being made in some areas, you do have people who are skeptical, who remain skeptical about getting vaccinated. And some people will say, well, look, in a sense, this bolsters our position that the vaccine doesn't really, do much to prevent or to help you from, contracting COVID-19. But it's an interesting development for us because we're having this conversation, and I know that, as I've mentioned, the Ministry of Health has gone above and beyond in some cases to explain exactly what this is and how important it is for us to be vaccinated. Because on the one hand, while you're saying, okay, well, I've taken a shot, both shots, and I'm still likely to catch COVID-19 despite being fully vaccinated. And on the other hand, you're being told, well, if you're not fully vaccinated, or if you're not vaccinated at all, then the likelihood of you contracting the virus and the outcome could be totally different, right? And so it's just something that I put out there because last week we recorded several deaths with persons who were fully vaccinated. And I know that because we reported it as such, people began talking about it as to the efficacy and this, that, and the third with respect of the vaccine.
Yeah. And, I think that one of the things that we did bring to light as well is talking about what were the demographics of the persons who were vaccinated, who were fully vaccinated, who lost their lives or ended up hospitalized. And what we have been told very clearly, it's the highly vulnerable population that we've always been talking about. Elderly persons, persons with diabetes, persons with hypertension, persons who are obese, persons who have some other illness that's making their immune system compromised. And I think that that's something that we keep on hearing being reinforced. When you look at the data, Isania, and that's a great image there. I think the idea is to look in at the fully vaccinated persons, but overwhelmingly the numbers are predominantly persons who are not vaccinated or not fully vaccinated. And it goes back to, where people seek information to validate their points of view. This is how I see it. Because yes, if you've been skeptical, you'll say, oh, look, it doesn't protect me. But let's look at the odds here. What are the odds of you having a breakthrough case and getting severe COVID and possibly losing your life? And what are the odds of whether you're vaccinated or unvaccinated? And so I think that that's the key point to look at. If I can be 1 out of 10 people versus 9 out of 10 people, I'd prefer to take my chances with that one. But I think that it reminds us that we have to keep the information flowing as much as possible. I think people have questions. Those questions deserve answers. And, especially if you are someone who has any one of these vulnerable conditions that make you vulnerable. And again, that includes anything that suppresses your immune system. It could be cancer treatment. It could be, there are many different things people are struggling with at this time. They have heart conditions. Obesity remains a high risk factor for many people as well. Then you do know you have to take extra care, even if you're fully vaccinated.
And then there's another part to it, at least coming out of cabinet last week, the formation of an enforcement task force.
Yeah.
Where we will have now a specialized group, a working group that will look at being able to really get down to enforcing regulations that have to do with movement and the enforcement of the overall, how do I say, the overall systems in place, right, to be able to tackle the COVID-19 situation. You look at that against the fact that there is a ballooning of numbers where if I were to look back, let's say for instance, a month and a half or so ago, and look at where we are now in terms of numbers, there's been a huge increase in active cases. I was looking the other day, and this is not the most accurate at this point because I know that we'll still tally the numbers from over the weekend. But I was looking the other day at where we stood, and we're at like 2,400 and some odd cases. And if that doesn't, alarm you enough, this is like we're in unprecedented territory here in terms of the numbers being this high. And so it's cause for concern, right? So there's the graphic.
And I always say, those are just the cases that are recorded. We know people who, I have known people who don't get tested because maybe someone in the house is positive and they just assume that they are as well, and they isolate without going through the formal system. We know people who just choose not to get tested for reasons I don't understand, because the contact tracing is what's important with that positive case that's identified. And when you think about that, 2,000 active cases, can you imagine the amount of work that's going in to contact trace these persons, especially with the Delta variant, which is so highly infectious?
Yeah. Then the other part of the conversation is that there's been a rush for people to get their vaccination cards and to get their IDs, so to speak, to be able to access these other public places, right? Not only government offices, but restaurants are also asking for persons to be able to present that validation, if I may, where they have been fully vaccinated and are allowed to now enter into restaurants and other establishments. So in and around Belize City for the past week or so, I've noticed that, there has been that enforcement. I've been to several restaurants and other locations where, as you enter, that's the first thing they ask you. Aside from you going through what has now become the customary in terms of sanitizing your hands and what have you, they're asking you to present that piece of document. And so persons who want to be out and about and want to free themselves up, well, this is the direction that you would want to take.
Yeah, absolutely. And, a while back, I know the restaurants were, some of the restaurants were calling for this particular initiative. They felt that they couldn't sustain their business. And so they were willing to implement a mandate for fully vaccinated persons to be able to dine at their restaurants. And so now indoors, I believe, is at 50% and outdoors at 75%. And you have to be fully vaccinated to be able to dine in. You can still get your takeout if you are a person who chose not to get vaccinated, but if you want that restaurant experience, it's going to require that.
So that's the first conversation that we wanted to touch on. Another interesting development coming out of last week was the signing of the collective bargaining agreement between the Port of Belize Limited and the Christian Workers Union on behalf of the waterfront workers, the stevedores, and the overall staff at the port. And this is significant simply because it has been long in the making.
Yeah.
In terms of, in terms of, our coverage of what has been taking place all these many years,
Yeah.
we've seen presidents come and go. In this case, there's been a change in the management at PBL, right? And we're here now. And I
We've
think
seen
it's,
uprisings and
yes,
clashes and
we've
walkouts
seen everything
and
that has come
protests.
along with
Yeah.
this, right? So it is quite an important, place that or juncture that they are now to be able to agree on the interests of both parties and finding it as an amicable way of moving forward. So we just wanted to acknowledge that as well, Marlene.
Yeah, I know you've been covering it for quite a while
Yes.
as well.
Yes, I have.
And it has been very challenging in kind of getting to negotiations in general means that, both sides have to come together and agree. And it has been a very challenging process, but somehow they've been able to get the CBA signed. I know it's for 4 years
Yes.
for now, and so this is a positive development in what has been a very challenging process that spanned many years.
And then the final conversation that I'm raising this morning has to do with the murder that took place in Roaring Creek over the weekend. Again, well, this involves 21-year-old Malcolm Hyde, who was in an area of Roaring Creek called Hattieville. Was waiting for someone inside his vehicle when he was ambushed and shot multiple times. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because, again, in our coverage of what has been happening in Roaring Creek over the past several years, we know that for whatever reason, the Hyde family has been under constant attack. We've covered several stories where persons related to them or the direct family members have been killed one way or the other. And so this is interesting for us because we need to hear from the police department what exactly were the circumstances and if this is in any way tied to any of the previous events that we've covered in terms of the Hyde family, right? So this morning we expect to hear from the police department as to, where they are with their investigation and again, what were the circumstances surrounding this particular homicide, right? So that rounds it off for us this morning with the Eye on the News. Remember, these stories and more you can certainly catch at 6 o'clock on News 5 Live. You can also catch our content being streamed on Facebook and YouTube.
And with that, we're going to get moving into our show for today.
This morning, we're going to have a conversation with the Chief Executive Officer of the Belize Tourism Board, along with the Chairman of BTB, as they provide us with an update on the tourism industry. That's our first conversation.
That's right. And we are closing off for today with a conversation with the Department of Youth Services. The end of the year is approaching, and every November, International Youth Day is celebrated, and a part of that is looking at their youth awards. So they're calling for nominations of outstanding young people, and we'll tell you how you can do that in the final part of our show. And so we're going to go ahead and take our first break, but before we do, we have our birthday shout out, and we are saying a happy birthday to
Coretta Usher. There she goes.
Coretta, you have a great day today. That comes from all of us here at Channel 5 and Open Your Eyes. We'll take that break, and when we come back, we'll be focusing on the tourism industry in Belize, so stay tuned.
We have been a partner with SMART for over 10 plus years. We have a full SMART plan we use as our major driver for our business. We have a service that rolls over in that if you call one and it is busy, it rolls over to the next line. So once you call us, you can get us at any time. Before we got this SMART service, we were paying upwards of nearly $2,000 in phone bills. Since we've had our SMART service, we pay an average about $600. So we've had tremendous saving, more than 50%. For the businesses, if you want to save money, switch to Smart because it is far more cost effective and the service is excellent.
Smart continues to be innovative in bringing new technology and meaningful savings during these challenging times to businesses across Belize. Sign up for our VoIP technology or broadband packages and save more.
Good morning, sweetie. It's time for school.
Are you a teacher or public sector employee who is thinking of owning your new home? Get the keys to your new home with Belize Bank's all-inclusive mortgage, the best financing option in Belize for your new home purchase or construction. Inclusive of all mortgage-related fees, no down payment, affordable terms, amazingly low interest rates. Visit our nearest branch to speak to one of our financial advisors to discuss how you can be one step closer to owning your new home. Some conditions apply.
The TV you love is always with you, from live TV, sports, and on-demand titles. Choose your plan today. Plans start as low as $15 per month. My TV, entertainment, anytime, anywhere.
My name is Dr. Gabriela Guerra. I am the wife of Dr. Kevin Rafael Guerra and sister-in-law of Dr. Kenneth Raul Guerra. Both of them passed due to COVID complications on December of 2020. My husband was the first one lose this battle on December 12th, and 18 hours later, my brother-in-law Kenneth passed away also. My husband and my brother-in-law, they was a troublemakers, double trouble. They had a lot of friends there and make a jokes and everything every time. They never take us seriously, nothing. They was very generous people, very compromised with their career. We share a lot of good times and memories that actually fill my heart, no? And I live from my memories and the time we share together. The worst thing about lose a loved one, no, due to the COVID, is your loved one be alone, admitted at a hospital, without you, without your cares. You can say bye, you can give the last kiss, you can give the last hug. And that's very painful. I think that's the worst thing. I miss the guy shared with me 12 years of my life, the best ones. I miss my son's father, the guy who played with my son every time and tried to teach football techniques to my son. For the ones maybe out there say the COVID not real, okay? Or pain. And the pain for everyone who lose a loved one. It's real, okay? The struggle is real. If my husband or my brother-in-law, they maybe at that time could have the opportunity to get the vaccine, they will not have a problems to say, I will get it, okay? I will get my vaccine. So if you have this opportunity, take it. I hope my testimony helped to change something in your mind. I probably take the best decision the next time when the doctor asks to you if you want to take your vaccine. If you don't want to do it for yourself, try to do it for your family, okay? To be safe, for your country.
Cumpleaños feliz, te deseamos a ti.
Today's COVID update is brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price but stay for the service.
And welcome back. We begin our conversation this morning with a discussion on the state of the tourism industry amid the COVID-19 pandemic. That said, we have with us virtually via Zoom the Chief Executive Officer of the Ministry of Tourism and Diaspora Relations, Nicole Solano. Good morning.
Annie, how are you?
I'm fine, and you?
Good, thanks.
All right. We also have the director.
Morning.
Morning.
We also have with us the director of the Belize Tourism Board, Evan Tillett. Good morning, Evan.
Hi, good morning, Sani. Good morning, Marlene. Good morning, industry stakeholders, and good morning, Belize.
Perhaps we can begin by, first of all, discussing your recent trip to the United States, where you visited four cities, as as part of your diaspora tour.
Sure, Isani. Yes, we are just back from a whirlwind tour visiting the diaspora. So it was very good. We went Belize to Houston. We did a town hall meeting and specific meetings with stakeholders there. And then from Houston, we went to Chicago. There again, we did business meetings with entrepreneurs, Belizean entrepreneurs there. We visited Belizean restaurants and met with Belizeans in Chicago. We had town hall meeting there. And then from Chicago, we went to New York. Same format, specific meetings with Belizeans in the diaspora, followed by town hall meetings. And then from New York, we went to Miami. Again, town hall and business meetings. So we met over the week about 400 or so. We rounded up, I think it was more like 390 Belizeans between all of our meetings.
What was the feedback like in terms of their participation, in terms of perhaps what they would want to see happen within the tourism industry at this point?
Well, remember, our ministry is the Ministry of Tourism and Diaspora Relations. So there's a lot of links between tourism and the diaspora, but there are a lot of extended needs, not only related to tourism. From a tourism perspective, we want to see more and more of Belizeans living abroad return home to visit for tourism. But beyond that, there are a lot of needs. There are consular needs. You may have noticed that we had included as well the ambassador who is in Washington, Ambassador Lin Yong. And he was able to speak to a lot of what is happening with the Embassy of Belize in the US, that is in Washington. And so he was able to answer a lot of the questions related to consular services, which is very much one of the main needs. However, Belizeans abroad have a lot of interest in Belize. We were able to hear from them, not in terms of only what their needs are, but the way that they want to contribute to the country. They're very passionate about Belize, and it was very encouraging, really, to see what their ideas, to listen to their ideas and hear how they were willing to participate. No?
Yeah. Just, I wanted to follow up on one question there, especially when it comes to diaspora relations. We've long talked about how important the Belizean diaspora is to the country in many ways, in the remittances, in those who come back and provide technical support to different industries, definitely a big part of the tourism sector as they come back and visit the country. But one of the challenges over the years has been able to put a measure on how big the diaspora is, getting them to register to say that they're a Belizean living abroad. You said you met with about 400, but estimates as to how many Belizeans are living in the United States go way beyond that. What's the plan with that?
Yes, we do estimate a conservative figure, about 300,000 Belizeans living abroad across the world. So what we're doing right now is we're trying to encourage them to provide their contact information so that we can stay in touch with them and have an ongoing dialogue. Yeah. That back and forth is so important, but we can't do that unless we have their contact information, include them on things like mailing lists, hear from them. We've already had quite a number of people sign on to our contact form and provide that information, and this trip in particular has helped that process. So a lot of people understand the importance of staying in touch and trying to find a way to remain engaged. So that process is ongoing. In terms of remittances, and our minister did present this in his presentation. The central bank reported something like $120 million in remittances last year, which was up from $90 million the year before. So during COVID, the diaspora did come and bring quite a significant amount of support for Belizeans at home in terms of specific revenue generation.
So let's get Mr. Tillett in on the conversation at this point. Were you also a part of the diaspora tour, Evan?
No. I wasn't a part of the diaspora tour. Actually, was in country, focusing on tourism and getting the tourism industry back in terms of recovery.
Yeah.
Where are we with that? Because we're looking at high numbers being recorded in terms of COVID-19 infections, and we're looking at a tourism industry that is perhaps struggling to find its feet amid all of what is taking place. Where are we?
Well, definitely COVID remains the major challenge for tourism. At the end of the day, if you're a tourist, you want to know that where you're going is safe. In May, June, July, we were trending really good in terms of our arrival numbers, and tourism was doing well. However, with the Delta variant and the fears of caused by the Delta variant, we see where August and September kind of struggled. As the Delta variant fears subside, we should see an improvement in terms of the numbers going into the high season. It is critical for us to continue to push the vaccination mandate. I think we have an opportunity in Belize because we have access to the vaccines for us to try and get as much people vaccinated so we can return to some sense of normalcy. The tourism industry, I know they're doing their part. Initially, through the lobbying of our minister, we had gotten about 8,000 vaccines specifically for frontline tourism workers. And in a very short time, that 8,000 was taken up and surpassed in terms of the people in the tourism sector.
Mm-hmm. Let's dive into some of the data here to see where we are now in terms of overnight and cruise to pre-pandemic levels.
In terms of overnight, January to June, we have seen arrivals totaling about 148,000 visitors to our shores. In terms of cruise, we are at about 48,000 since cruise opened back in July. We had Royal Caribbean now opening back up in September. And so for the next quarter, we expect that we should have about 81 calls and approximately an additional 141,000 cruise passengers gracing our shores. Yeah. So that is where we are in terms of numbers. Of course, we are still down in regards to 2019, which was a really, really good year. But the challenges that COVID has presented, we are focusing on our strategic marketing, using digital marketing to drive the visitor to our countries, as well as doing a lot of trade shows virtually. In fact, we just did a in-person trade show in Miami with the Travel Association in South Florida. Yeah. So we're doing a number of things that are focusing on trying to get the visitor back in country. We, from the perspective of air route development, one of the key factors in our recovery plan was to ensure that we have as much of the airlift that we had pre-COVID reinstated. In fact, we have had most of them. Southwest is coming back in November, and we've also had 2 new airlines, namely Alaska Airlines as well as Frontier Airlines, which will start flying December and November, respectively.
Let me ask a question. Last week, Mexico reported that they have officially hit their pre-pandemic numbers for tourism. What are they doing differently, and what are some of the things perhaps that we can look at to be able to get the type of results that we are working towards, which is getting back to pre-pandemic levels?
That is a question that we have been looking at in terms of how we can get there. Mexico is a different product from what we have in Belize. Yes. In Belize, we tend to push more authenticity, adventure, and experiential tourism. In Mexico, there is a lot of airlift and a lot of low-cost carriers that fly into Mexico. They have all-inclusive. In terms of your COVID protocols, they are very, very, for the lack of a better term, I would say loose in their COVID protocols. And of course, when people travel or visitors travel, they want to be able to immerse themselves in a destination. When you have COVID restrictions, then it provides a huge challenge in trying to get people to come to the destination. And so from those perspectives, that's the difference between Mexico and Belize. And so we have to look at the way forward in terms of our COVID policies if we are to make some serious traction for tourism. Don't get me wrong, there has to be a balance between tourism and health and safety. Mm-hmm. And when it tips one side, it has to be balanced. And so it is critical. We have to be very, very diligent in the decisions that we make, that because it affects tourism, but it also affects lives.
There were two major changes I know since the summer, and one is looking at new regulations for persons who are coming into the country, their vaccination status and testing, and also the fact that we are now in the middle of a wave. How much has the sector itself reported this having a negative impact on bookings or cancellations?
If you look, let's take a look at August, for instance. In May, June, July, we were trending really, really well. Yes. In terms of our arrival numbers. At that time, we were at level 1 in terms of the CDC COVID restrictions. Yeah. And by August, we were at level 4. Also, because our numbers started to shoot up in terms of our COVID numbers in country, there were more stringent measures put in place. Immediately, you saw a dip in terms of reservations for our country, and the private sector reported cancellations. So those things have a direct effect or correlation to what happens in terms of tourism arrivals.
What are some of the questions that tourists are asking before coming to the country that help them to make their decision?
One of the things definitely is regarding the curfew and the timing. Currently, the big question is, would unvaccinated tourists be allowed to go into restaurants? Because currently we allow unvaccinated people to come in, but the new legislation or regulation states that you have to be vaccinated in order to enter. So there needs to be some clarity on that issue, which we are working on to try and get and to provide for the industry as quickly as possible.
How have the independent tour operators been able to adjust in terms of all that is being put forth by the ministry and of course by BTB in terms of compliance to the regulations and dealing with these visitors?
We have had a good relationship with the independents. In fact, we have assisted them in terms of COVID packages, which include sanitizers, masks, etc. We have also assisted via our matching small grants program through the BTP, where we assist them in terms of getting ready to open back for the industry. They have been very receptive in terms of the policies, particularly the gold standards that they have to meet in order to operate. And so it has been a good partnership and good collaboration with the independents as well as the rest of the tourism sector.
Yeah. Let me bring this question over to the CEO for a moment, because I think Director Tillett just pointed out something really critical, which is whether unvaccinated tourists who come into the country, meet the criteria with their negative test, will be allowed to dine at a restaurant. That's a major part of your vacation. You may not be going to bars because they can't be open, or nightclubs, but at least you want to have a nice meal at a restaurant. This brings it back to kind of the balancing act that the government has had to do in looking at having regulations for COVID safety, but also not damaging this particular sector. What's the status on that, CEO? Are you going to be, is the ministry going to be asking for some type of relief there?
Yes, you're absolutely right, Marlene. The ease of travel, the ease of entry, tourists are looking for destinations where it's not, you don't have so many restrictions. As Mr. Tillett mentioned, they don't want to be under any kind of strict rules. They will simply look for a destination that does not have a long list of requirements that are needed. So absolutely, from the Ministry of Tourism standpoint, we are in constant communication with the Ministry of Health, as we have from the beginning of the year, trying to see how we can strike that delicate balance. Right now, the fact of the matter is that there is a regulation in place where only vaccinated tourists can enter restaurants. We believe that that is not going to be a long-term solution. I know that our minister is in constant communication as well with the Minister of Health and the other ministers in cabinet to try and get some relief in that area, because we have made a decision that we will not limit entry to only vaccinated tourists. Therefore, unvaccinated tourists need to be able to have access to these facilities. And it is something that is being raised, it is under consideration. The private sector has raised that point over and over and over again. Both Mr. Tillett and I and everybody in the ministry and BTB, in terms of our customer relations, we have been getting tons of questions and fielding tons of questions related to this. And we're trying to find a balance because much of what you currently see in the regulations trying to stem COVID for the general public in Belize just simply doesn't work for tourism. So we're in the process of trying to find that balance, and that is an ongoing process.
Is there any concern that perhaps it creates a double standard in terms of what applies to locals versus what applies to visitors?
Interesting question. We had at the beginning of the year a tourism recovery task force that we just reconvened. We broke that task force apart somewhere in April or May when things
We're looking up.
We're looking up, and we had to reconvene that task force, and that is a very, very important discussion that we had. What is the definition of a tourist? A tourist is not only an international traveler, we have local tourism. So we cannot discriminate against our local tourists. Whatever we put in place has to apply across the board for both international and local tourists, and therein lies the challenge, because the idea is to try and reduce the amount of movement locally to stem COVID. But if you look at the tourism industry and you look at the hotels, you look at the gold standards and what is happening not only in the hotel sector but the tour sector, our private sector is prepared. It is not the tourists that are causing the issue. We have tourists arriving with their tests, departing with their tests. We have all of the properties implementing protocols safely. And so whether or not it is a local or an international tourist, they are in what we consider to be safe spaces, no? So we don't want to leave out the local tourists. We want to make sure that if you and I want to go and travel to wherever it is, Placencia, Hopkins, anywhere, Cayo, Punta Gorda, it does not matter where in this country, we can move if we are moving for the purpose of tourism. But it is very challenging, no? It's a challenging one.
Yeah. But put it into perspective for me. What percentage of tourists that are coming into the country are unvaccinated?
We don't know because that data is not being collected. We know anecdotally because when we do our own checks, first of all, we know that a very small percentage of anyone entering the country, whether it's Belizean or tourists, are testing positive on arrival. They are doing their tests and it's a very small percentage. We have asked the private sector what they think is the number, and we've heard numbers of about 25% of the travelers entering are unvaccinated, and that's in the overnight sector. If you look at the cruise sector, we know that upwards of 98% of the travelers are vaccinated because the cruise lines aren't allowing passengers to board their ships unless they are vaccinated, except for in the case of children or those who have certain conditions that prevent them from being vaccinated. So in the tourism industry, we know that the majority of the people are vaccinated, and we know that our local stakeholders, frontline workers, are also vaccinated. So you're dealing in an environment where you have majority vaccinated people. And so, some of the feedback that we've been getting, the industry is saying, well, if we've done so much to make sure that our employees are vaccinated, we're vaccinated, our guests are vaccinated, why are we under such strict protocols, So some people ask, well, why some of these destinations get special treatment? And the fact of the matter is, within the tourism industry, and what I will refer to loosely right now as tourism destination zones, because there are no zones, Belize, there's tourism all over this country. So you can't isolate certain areas and call them tourism zones because tourism exists everywhere. So where we know that there are the largest pockets of tourism activity, those areas we consider to be safer areas when it comes to COVID because you're dealing with majority vaccinations, no?
And of course, still battling. I think Isani's question is one that was really hotly debated when there were exceptions made for the curfew. But I think both of you have mentioned so far that the curfew still is an issue for tourists coming in. And what is the response that the stakeholders are using at this time? I've read articles where the advice is don't travel internationally because you don't know what's going to happen when you get there. You may have stricter measures, lockdowns, or curfews in place, and Belize seems to fall in that category.
Correct, and that is exactly what we have to try to combat, because if we don't, we're going to end up with a very difficult high season where we see more and more cancellations. So now is the time that we have to really review what is happening. We have to find a way to operate as safely as we can, because as Mr. Tillett mentioned before, we don't underestimate the effects of COVID, right? We have to take that into consideration. But if we do not look at the economic side, and we do not look at tourism specifically, which we always say over and over and again, represents 40% of our GDP, we will be in trouble in this high season. And we really do need to make sure that we don't have the kind of cancellations that we will have if we do not make some adjustments.
Yeah. And Director Tillett, tell us a bit about what the predictions are for the high season.
From the information I've gotten from the private sector in terms of bookings and from our own data, it seems that we should have a good high season if the dynamics doesn't change. Because we thought that we were moving and trending really well until Delta reared its head, no? But the high season right now still looks really good. There were some cancellations, but the bookings have started back, and so we're hoping to have a really good high season. But what we do know in terms of restrictions will have an effect on what happens in high season. And so it's critical that we have a clear plan in terms of how things will be dealt with. And we understand that that is being worked on, and hopefully we can have some clarity to that in a short time. No?
All right, let's talk a bit about what is taking place again in some of the destinations. We're looking at San Pedro, Caye Caulker, Placencia, and even in Hopkins. Aside from the fact that several weeks ago, those destinations were allowed to remain open until 9 o'clock, while the rest of the country was pretty much at 7 o'clock we were indoors. What is taking place there in terms of the product and in terms of visitors being able to either converge on these particular destinations and kind of help with the economic boost?
Well, the majority of visitors right now, I would say 92%, they're coming from the US.
Yeah.
Canada is still pretty much locked down, and they're at a level 3 where they're telling you non-essential travel should not be done. Europe is opening up slowly. In terms of the destinations, they're doing their marketing. The BTB has a renewed marketing campaign that is focusing on using digital marketing to push the destinations. In fact, right now, I know the marketing director is currently working with her team to develop destination-specific marketing programs that will do exactly what you spoke of in terms of marketing the individual destination, the San Pedro, the Caye Caulker, the Hopkins, Cayo, and so that along with the overall marketing thrust for the destination for Belize, I think will continue for us to grow the numbers coming in and get back to some pre-COVID numbers and beyond, because that is the goal. Currently, we are also focusing on revising the National Sustainable Tourism Master Plan, which is critical because that's the roadmap that determines how we grow tourism and grow tourism in a sustainable manner. So we're in the process of updating that as we speak, and that will be the blueprint as we continue to grow tourism.
Now, you noted before, and I think I wanted to learn a bit more, there was a matching grant program that was rolled out by BTB to help stakeholders. Tell us a bit about how that has been going and some of the innovative ideas you've seen so far.
There are two different components to the matching grant program. One that's being operated by the BTB, and that has been going well. We have had over 600 applicants for that program. We have assisted over 200 thus far, and we are expecting to assist an additional 200, 250 stakeholders, not only tour operators, but small accommodations, every facet of the tourism sector. Then you also have the IDB matching grants program, which is being done under the Sustainable Tourism Project, which the CEO can give you a little more detail than I can in terms of that.
Yes, let me talk a bit about the matching grants. First of all, let me just mention that the matching grants, as the name suggests, is a matching grants program where the recipient needs to provide matching amounts, contributions, correct. So what we did, because the process is still underway with the IDB, the minister allocated some funds so that we can start the process with small and medium enterprises. But we're rolling out the program in a similar way as stipulated by the regulations and accountability rules of IDB, so that when we get to the IDB portion, which would be small and medium, not micro. Micro is what we're focusing right now. The very small businesses, they still have to provide business plans. They still have to go through the entire process that they would need to go through under the IDB program. The IDB program would be an extension of what we're doing specifically for small and medium. The private sector really does need the support right now. This is what we've been saying over and over in our communications with the IDB. I think that it is clear that what COVID has presented to the tourism industry has required us as a government to support them. We need to be able to provide the support in this way. So we're trying to identify funds in all ways that we can to make sure that we can give that support. As Mr. Tillett mentioned, from the BTB portion of this program, there has been a significant amount of applications, and we still have a ways to go. There are additional applications. I think we received something like 200, is that what it is, Mr. Tillett? 200 applications or approved applications, because remember, when we receive an application, it needs to go through the vetting process and determine. It's not a social program or a handout program. It is a matching grants program where all applicants need to provide a business plan and qualify to participate. And this is the case for both programs, right? The one through BTB, the one through IDB. So we expect that this will continue over the coming months and roll over into the IDB funded portion of the matching grants. So we expect that more and more tourism companies would be able to benefit from this.
Is it to say that of all the applicants, you would have to have perhaps an original idea or something that would be otherwise palatable for this to receive funding?
Not necessarily. There's actually a list of criteria. So once the business meets the criteria, and the criteria is really centered around the needs of COVID. I mean, a lot of people have gone almost out of business because of the way that everybody was, the entire industry was decimated. So there are needs, and we have a list of criteria. Once the business meets those criteria, they can qualify. Now, from the IDB portion, which is specifically for small and medium, we are looking for innovative ideas and ideas that companies can implement in order to catapult their business further. But before we can get to that point, there are certain businesses that actually just need to survive. So what do you need to survive? And that is the priority right now, no?
Yeah, definitely. And I think as some places had closed or stopped doing business and they're trying to get back on their feet, and there's some startup that's necessary. Just to clarify though, the matching grant means that they must also contribute, but that doesn't necessarily mean financial. I know with the micro program, is it going to be different for the small and medium?
It's going to be the same, because matching does not necessarily mean in cash. It can be in cash or in kind. So the company needs to be able to demonstrate that they can provide a certain amount of support as well. It's not a full grant, right? It is matching. So it can be in cash or in kind.
Okay. So let's, and this is a key step in being able to help the sector get back on its feet. What other programs are ongoing at this time to get the industry prepared, or I guess some of them it's like resuscitating, so that they can prepare for the high season that all are hoping is going to be a good one?
Yes, and I know that Mr. Tillett can speak to some of those, because the BTB is rolling out a significant amount of programs, whether it is under training, whether it is under support for the renewal of fees, because we're not going to be, charging for renewal fees in certain sectors, tour operators, tour guides, whether it is additional innovative programs that I know the BTB has the Innovation Challenge. There are other programs where they're looking at resources and funds through the DFC. There's a number of ways in which we are trying to assist the industry, and BTB has been a leader in trying to make sure that we can meet those needs specifically. Mr. Tillett, I don't know if you have more to contribute there.
You have covered a lot, CEO. In terms of there's also a program, a lease to own program that we're working on, so that we can enhance the ground transportation within the tourism sector. We have been working with the Belize Estate Group on that. That is almost online, so we're continuing to work on that. We have assisted the hotel properties, some hotel properties that were eligible to get a discount through the BWS in terms of water charges. We have worked with the National Bank, the DFC, in order to try and motivate them to provide lines that the industry can borrow from to get their business ready or to get that lifeline that is required because of the challenges that COVID provided. We have assisted in terms of tour guides and tour operators, waiving those fees in terms of renewal. We have also assisted via the paying for the police record for all tour guides for this season. So we have done a lot of things in terms of trying to assist the industry, including the small grants program, training. We have done a lot of training in terms of health and safety. We have new training coming up in terms of service excellence. Yeah. We're launching a new training program called Elevate, which will be rolled out later in October. So we're doing a lot of things to try and get the industry ready, both financially and in terms of training.
Mm-hmm. And looking at the local tourism, I know we haven't spent much time talking about that as yet, but we do know that Belizeans are traveling and exploring this country more than we've seen before. What efforts are made to be able to sustain that even when things start to recover with the international arrivals?
Well, it's a collaborative effort between the BTB and the ministry and the private sector. I think that COVID has taught us that local tourism is really important for the Belize tourism product. And so I think a lot of the private sector hotels have realized the importance of local tourism, and they are now catering to local tourism, having special Belizean rates and discounts. In fact, we are currently working on a program where we can assist by providing a rebate for the local travelers to continue to push local tourism, because it is critical for the survival of a lot of these properties and a mainstay in the tourism product that we're pushing.
Did you say a rebate? You want to explain that a bit more?
Yeah, we're working to see if we can reduce the tax on the local traveler that will provide some incentive for them to travel more. And in the same hand, the private sector will provide preferential rates for Belizean travelers. So it's a collaborative effort between the BTB and the private sector.
Okay.
Marlene, can I just add quickly? I wanted to say that it's been, I think, a change in culture, because it's been almost 2 years now that we cannot exit the country for travel, right? Yeah. So it's really presenting an opportunity for Belizeans to visit all of the destinations. In fact, none of us, I haven't. I travel a lot within Belize and I still haven't been everywhere. So it will take a lot for us all to visit everywhere there is to visit within Belize. And I can see a shift in culture, not only from the Belizean traveler, but from the private sector, where even their marketing, if you notice some of the hotels are actually changing the way they market, and they are marketing specifically for Belizeans. And it's such a joy to see it, because, you know, who better than us to enjoy our own country? And we are the best ambassadors. So once we visit, we can speak to it. We can talk to our families and friends, whether it's tourists, people, our friends and family abroad, or diaspora. You know, we can then start to open a whole new way of promoting Belize once we've experienced it ourselves. So it's very exciting, the whole local travel, and it's something that we cannot ignore.
I mean, I'm so glad you said that. I think there's a understated ripple effect when Belizeans travel across this country. I post something, my family in the States see it, they come, they go, they post it, their American friends see it or international friends see it, and you've just exposed a destination by having one Belizean travel there.
Exactly.
So, but I guess the skepticism that people have is, well, this is only happening because right now you need us. You, the stakeholders, you, the tourism industry, you, the ministry. What assurances do you make? I mean, how is this fit within your sustainable development plan?
I think you said it just now, the sustainability of the industry does rely on Belizeans being able to travel within their country, and it's part of our authenticity. We have to love Belize first. And so the only way to love Belize as a Belizean is to go out and experience Belize and really be able to express that authentically. And I think in terms of the pricing, I think that is the biggest challenge. Can Belizeans afford to do that? And I see where the private sector is really taking the bull by the horns and trying to make sure that there is accessibility. And they adjust as they see it. I mean, the industry knows that it's important, and they are making those adjustments. Not only, I've seen it happen not only for Belizeans that are resident here, but for the Belizeans who live in the diaspora. You have a lot of Belizean resorts now specifically providing and attracting the diaspora, because they hear so much about what's going on in the diaspora. They're actually promoting to the Belizeans living abroad too. Yeah. So I don't think it's a temporary thing. I think it's a shift in the way that we operate, and I see it as a long-term one.
I totally agree with the CEO. It's definitely a culture shift, both from the part of the Belizean traveler as well as the private sector. And in talking to private sector will tell you, man, my hotel was full this weekend, and it was full with all Belizeans. And so they recognize the value of the Belizean traveler dollar. And so they will cater to it, and it will be here for a very long time. It's not going anywhere.
All right. And lastly, just I think you talked about digital marketing, but looking at the marketing strategy, you know, the Belizean product has been marketed in many different ways, and clearly COVID requires a revamp. What's the new message for travel to Belize?
The new message for travel to Belize is basically that we are an adventure, authentic destination. And our new marketing campaign is designed along those lines. It's about the experiential tourism, all the experiences that you can have in Belize, from culinary to adventure, being on the longest living barrier reef in the Western Hemisphere in the morning, and being in the jungle, deep in the jungle at night. That's a thing that you can only experience in Belize. I think we have the best destination on the planet, and our marketing campaign highlights that. So we are firmly behind our marketing campaign to drive that message to the world, and to ensure that we get to 2019 numbers and beyond. That is the key. We feel that the digital marketing is the great equalizer, because we don't have the budgets of Mexico, Costa Rica, but using the digital platform, we are able to have focused, targeted, strategic marketing. We focus a lot on where we have direct flight routes to Belize, and those feeder cities that feed into those. That has been our target. We have been using data more now to make our marketing decisions, and that has shown a lot of success. We have a marketing committee that we work with as well, that's made up of the private sector, that assist and guide us in direction. We have our marketing firms in the US, in Europe, the UK, that focuses on driving the Belize message to the world. And it has been working, and we continue to make adjustments as we see fit based on COVID, based on what's happening on the global level, and we will continue to do that.
And as we round off the conversation, can you share with us what's your biggest concern for the industry right now? It has performed better the tourism recovery has definitely been better than was first anticipated or even projected by regional and international experts. But what is the biggest concern today?
In my mind, the biggest concern has to be the pandemic, because without there's some change in the way the pandemic is going, what we know as normal will not be coming back until, let's say, probably next year. That's what the experts are now saying. I think we all felt that the vaccines were the key in terms of getting back to normal, but Delta had changed that. And so the more we can push the vaccination agenda to ensure that everybody gets vaccinated, then we'll be able to beat this thing, get over the hump, and get back to some sense of normalcy and focus on the strengths that Belize have as a destination. Like I said, Belize is the best destination on planet Earth, and we market it as such.
And for you, CEO?
In terms of concerns, I echo what Mr. Tillett mentioned, and it is very difficult to plan ahead. We're all accustomed to making strategic plans and putting long-term, short-term, medium-term, whatever, planning in place, but we can't. It's very difficult. You make a plan and COVID comes along and says no. So
pandemic survival.
Correct. So we have to be agile and we have to shift and change and move as we go to make things work. So my biggest concern is that some of the decisions that we have to make in order to be successful will be unpopular, and it will not be in line with what everybody thinks we need to do. Also, the balancing act between health and economic recovery is always a difficult one. So my concern just has to do with how we balance and how we make decisions, because every single decision impacts on tourism, and we have to be very careful and very thoughtful in all of our decisions. So I want to see more collaboration. It's important, communication, and we all recognize the need for that. But in terms of concern, it's really how do we do that successfully? No?
So from what I'm hearing, anticipating as we move forward, if there is some kind of relaxation given that unvaccinated tourists can't dine in restaurants, what would you say to the public? Those who may look at it as something potentially unfair. It's not happened as yet, but you said you're lobbying for it. What would you say to the public in advance?
Well, we are of the opinion, and we've had this discussion internally, we're of the opinion that regulations have to apply across the board. We're not in favor of regulations, special regulations for tourists, because the definition of tourists include Belizean tourists. So we are not advocating for special permissions for anybody. We are advocating for smart decisions across the board, and that's not easy. So we understand that the Ministry of Health has a very difficult job, and in tourism, we will play our part in just raising the concerns of the industry and trying to see where we can find that balance. I don't know where the final decisions will go, but as I said, from a tourism standpoint, we're not here to say, please give special permission for tourists. We're here to say, how can we make it work across the board? Because whatever regulations are implemented have to apply for both Belizeans and tourists, in our opinion, no?
Okay. Well, thank you both for joining us and for providing this update this morning. We appreciate it and continue to stay safe.
Thank you very much for having us, Marlene and Isani.
Sure.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Have a good day.
You too.
All right, so we'll take our next commercial break, and when we return, we're going to be joined by our friends from the Department of Youth Services as we look forward to the award season that's upcoming. Stick around.
This COVID update was brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service. Working off-site doesn't mean you have to be off your game. Studies have shown that simply adding a keyboard and mouse to your laptop increases productivity by 26%. Add a monitor, and you'll be 35% more productive. At Fulltech Systems, we have what you need to enhance your remote work or e-learning experience. With devices such as headsets, video conferencing monitors, webcams, keyboards, mice, docking stations, all with the brands you trust. Keep connected with collaboration tools like Microsoft 365 Suite and Kaspersky and perform efficiently no matter where you are. Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service.
At Fuse Bistro Limited, we care about the well-being of your family and the environment. Our Your Caribbean style restaurant features a wide variety of tropical lunches, gourmet dinners, Fuse granola, organic coffee, infused sangrias, margaritas, and martinis, and much more for you to enjoy. Find our organic food products at Belizon, Bistro, Grab on the Go, and stores in San Ignacio and Santa Elena. WhatsApp us at 624-0500 for deliveries. Fused Bistro Limited, pure and natural.
Vaccines protect you and they protect me. Getting vaccinated is one of the most important things you can do to keep yourself and your family safe and healthy. Once enough people are immunized, opportunities for an outbreak of disease becomes very low. And if we all choose to get vaccinated, we contribute in getting back to spending quality time with our loved ones in a safe way.
Smart continues to expand its internet coverage countrywide to help you live a smarter life.
Our villagers are very happy. They are pleased to know that Smart went the extra mile to put a tower in our village so that our villagers can get live stream on their TVs and they can get their kids doing their online classes. I want to say to Smart, thank you for making it possible for us to get internet in Gardenia Village. We really do appreciate it.
Smart continues to take the internet and mobile services to communities across Belize. Now save even more when you bundle your Smart broadband with Smart mobile services. Smart, bringing people together.
The continued fight against COVID-19 requires the continued practice of public health measures across all sectors and in every community. Frequent and proper hand washing, wearing face masks, and physical distancing. Do you know who is not physical distancing? The Aedes aegypti mosquito. Did you know that dengue is the most common mosquito-borne viral disease in the world? So let's get to work. Use window and door screens to keep mosquitoes out. Change the water in vases and scrub inside surfaces to remove mosquito eggs. Avoid using saucers with potted plants to prevent collection of water. Securely cover water barrels and drums with mosquito netting and properly fitted covers. Scrub the inside walls of water barrels and drums with detergent 1 to 2 times per week. Walk around the outside of your home and remove or overturn containers that can collect water and become breeding sites. Mosquitoes only need a small amount of water to lay their eggs. Remove unwanted cans, bottles, buckets, or used tires. Other items still in use must be properly stored in covered areas to avoid water settling in them. Clean roof gutters and air conditioner trays. Debushing and removing tall grass from around your home or establishment is also key to reducing mosquito populations. Fight the bite and protect yourself and your family too from mosquito-borne diseases.
Hey son, how was your first day at Sixth Form?
Really cool. It was great to see my friends, and I really love my teachers.
I'm so happy to hear that. I'm sorry I wasn't there for your first day, but I'll be back from Corozal next week.
It's okay, Dad. I can't wait to see you. Oh, and please remember, I still have some books I need to purchase.
Ah, yes. Let me e-cash you that right now. Money has been sent. I add a little extra cash just for you.
Whoa, Dad. Thanks. Got it.
You're welcome, sir.
Download the eCash app today and take your first step into a cashless lifestyle. For more information, visit www.e-cash.com or contact us via WhatsApp at 613-0257. eCash, the future is here.
And welcome back. Our final conversation for the morning is with our friends from the Department of Youth Services. We have with us in studio Sabrina Daly. She's the Communications Officer. Good morning, Sab. We also have Adriana Young. She's the Acting Coordinator at the Youth Entrepreneurship at DYS. Good morning.
Yes,
Adriana.
good morning.
And joining us online via Zoom is Aziel Koo. He is the recipient of the 2020 Youth in Technology Award. Good morning, Aziel.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Talk to us about the awards and what these awards signify for the development of young persons in Belize.
Well, good morning again, everyone. So, Youth Awards has been around for a while. Every year, it's an event that we host that celebrates the achievements of young people. And it's really a moment for young people to come together and celebrate being young, because it is held during Youth Week every year. And we try our best to make it as creative every year. We try to improve it every year. So essentially, when we think about youth development, it's an opportunity for us to encourage young people for what they're already doing, and to also encourage other young people that are perhaps maybe a little bit shy to step out there and really put their faces out there for development. It encourages them that they can do it too.
And the opportunity for the Youth Awards, or the opportunity to nominate people for the Youth Awards, give other people the chance to shine light on someone who doesn't even know that they're being a trailblazer.
Exactly, because sometimes, you know, young people are very modest, and sometimes they don't want to put themselves out there, and they're excellent in whatever field they're in. So sometimes you have the opportunity now to highlight someone, and they don't have to nominate themselves. So it's also rewarding for them to know that other people are seeing the work that they're doing and they're being nominated.
Tell us about what it's like to be nominated, Aziel.
It's a very surreal feeling. Many times you work and then you're excited about something and don't notice or realize that people also believe in you and people want to support you and that people are watching. Sometimes you're focused on getting so excited about what you're doing and you forget that the people are looking at you.
So you actually received the award in 2020. Tell us a bit about the work you were doing and when you found out that you were nominated.
Yeah, so our team got the award, and we were working on distro. We had just started to look at other services that people wanted us to work on, and so we were working hard with the team to bring it out, to work on it and merge it. And then it was a very busy night as usual, and so everyone was in the office trying to make sure that everything is going as planned and smooth. And then we had it playing on one of the laptops in the background, and when we heard that we won it, I just remember the girls just screaming like, "Oh, we won out of it." It was just a very special moment for the team to get that recognition.
What does it mean for you on a personal level in terms of your motivation going forward?
It really sort of brought it home that the work we do, it's not really about us or about me. It's about proving that an idea can happen, an idea can change people's lives. Because the entire team is really youth. So we only have certain people that are adults that are over 30. But for the most part, we have a lot of youths working with us. And so when they get that recognition, and I told them that it's really about the work that they did, and feeling that an idea, it's really hard to have an idea and to build on it. So to have that recognition that, oh, well, we just looked at having a service, and then to see that it's actually something in technology and that people see how innovative it is.
Yeah, I just want to say, whenever I think about this particular category, it takes me back to when I met Aziel for the first time. And I recently told him this story about a week ago. I met Aziel, it was like a weekend, and I was buying groceries, and he was at Publix supermarket giving out little like cards or flyers or something about his business. And he was so humble, and he approached everyone, and he gave his card. And I immediately saw it, and it's like an app that you can download. So I got home and I downloaded it and everything, and I was like, this is cool. This is up from what we have. Yeah. And I immediately knew at that moment that he needed to be recognized. Even if he didn't win, it was important that he would be nominated, because this is the message that we want to send. We want young people to be encouraged that whatever they're doing is making an impact in their community, in the country of Belize, in whatever part of development, whether it's youth development or exactly like he's working in innovation and technology. It was so important to highlight that. So I'm so proud of Aziel, and learning that a year later it would come full circle and we would be working with each other again, where he would be sharing now his improvement and how he has really evolved in innovation and technology. It's just absolutely amazing, and I'm so excited to be a part of it, or to have been a part of it a year earlier.
Yeah. But what are the other categories that people can be nominated for?
So a lot of the categories, we have always just brought them back in because it's always important to highlight them. There's the youth leadership category, category. There's diversely able, because we also want to honor those that are diversely abled. There's the entrepreneurship category that Ms. Adriani is definitely vast in. There is the innovation and technology that Aziel had been nominated for. There's youth and agriculture. There's athletic excellence, academic excellence. There's about 13, but I can't remember them all from
the screen right now.
Yeah,
So
from the top of my head.
Youth Club of the Year.
Youth Club of the Year. Yeah.
Youth Ministers Award.
Yes. Which is the Leadership Award. Yeah.
Social media influencer.
Yes, because I mean, with the pandemic, we have all just jumped on social media, and that's another perfect example of how we have become innovative. For instance, I'm sure that ties perfectly with entrepreneurship. There's a lot of online businesses, and I'm excited to see the applications that we get in terms of how people believe that they are a social media influencer and how they have impacted in some way or another through youth development.
I think another important part of the social media one is because everyone has gone to social media, there's so much negativity.
For
there
sure.
is a lot, and it affects a lot of people's mental health. So finding young people that are in that positive light, it's going to be great to highlight them.
Yeah, I love that, because that's what I was thinking. I was like, that's popularity, and then there's using the influence you have for good.
For good, exactly.
Let's bring it back to the entrepreneurship, though. Tell us about how you've been helping young people develop ideas and moving into their own businesses.
Okay, great. So we have a service area called the Youth Entrepreneurship and On-the-Job Skills Services. Since the amalgamation of all the different government departments under DYS, that is one of the service areas that was a product. So what we do there is we help young people, like you said, develop their business ideas. Sometimes you don't have to know exactly where you want to go. You might have just an idea, and that's where we come in. We are youth officers. We have youth officers there to help you. We have everybody equipped with their business plan outlined to help you prepare a business plan if you don't have one. You know, and we recently partnered with DFC to offer youth loans for a startup. You know that financial institutions in Belize don't really give startup
And it's hard for young people to access capital for their startup.
Yeah, and most places don't give startup, and that is one of the things that DFC and DYS have partnered to do, startup. And that's a big thing for us, because if you go to the bank, even if it's $2,000, they're gonna be like, it's a startup, we don't sure how that's gonna go, so we can't give you that at this time. Come back in 5 years with your business plan and show us how you've been growing. And some people can't reach that point until they've had some help.
Yeah, because they need that seed money.
Exactly. So that is what we have partnered to offer. We're very grateful that DFC was very happy to join us on this initiative, because they already had a product going on for young men and women. And so with our partnership, we are now helping them with that process. Even if they don't have everything they need, the requirements, we are helping them through that process to get their business plans ready. They're getting all their information. They're doing their market research, their product research. They're doing all of those things, and we help them develop that plan so that we know that when we send them over to get that loan, they're completely ready and we're not setting up them to fail. Because you could have great ideas, and if we say, yes, come and we give you that money, then we look at it and wonder, why are young people not being successful? We need to help them to reach that point of success.
What are the sorry.
How has it been in terms of generating that interest? Because young people, in a sense, their mindset can be fleeting, right?
Definitely.
They have their eyes on one thing right now, and in a heartbeat, they're thinking of something else. How has it been in terms of generating the interest and keeping that momentum?
For us, the applications that come in, we vet them and we start calling them and we start having a discussion from the onset. So from that conversation, we start telling them, if this is something that you want, it takes a lot of commitment. So before we go into the work, I'm telling them the primary part of it is a lot of work. So from that point, you will see their interest if they're committed to staying within that. A business plan is not an easy document to create. Even if you're creating a youth-friendly one, it's a lot of information that you have to do because you're passionate about. You have to go out there and ask your friends, hey, what do you think about this? Would this work? Or you do your research and see if someone is, how they react to a product or a service. So you really have to be passionate, and that shows from the onset who are the people that will move on to the other level.
Those who are willing to do
Who are
the work.
willing, yes. Because some people have ideas and they get excited because, it's an opportunity, but beyond just the opportunity, there's work. There's a lot of work.
Even on the days you don't feel like it.
Exactly.
I wanted to tap into that with you, because we know that we've had you on the show in your own entrepreneurship roles. And so you've had that experience. What's the one thing you tell people when they come in? Maybe they do have a great idea, but it's knowing the drive they have to have along with it.
And I think that is one of the things that helped me a lot, and I can share stories with them of sometimes I don't want to do it, but I have to. It's not a choice if this is something that you really want. So I share my stories with them and I tell them, this is how I started and this is how I keep going. Sometimes it's not always, it won't be motivation that takes you to the end. It's discipline. After a while, your motivation will go. But you need to be disciplined. And there are a lot of young people that are passionate and they will continue. You can see it. They're passionate about going and they're always communicating. And they're like, this is what we're doing. This is what do you think? And you can see that they're driven to reach to that point. And after a point, like I said, it's not motivation anymore. It's just discipline.
And Aziel, I wanted to get your perspective on that too. I remember when you guys were here talking about Vistro, and I was super excited. And then this was before the pandemic. And clearly the pandemic opened a door, or I would say multiple doors, for the opportunity for this type of service. But it's not easy starting something new where people don't have any prior experience of what to expect.
Yeah, that was something that we really had to sit down hours and days, and we had, like the movies, you have different mock-ups, you call it version 1, version 2, and you give it to people, and you just give it to them and say, let me know how you would use it. Because the pandemic really opened a lot of doors, and it really pushed us to try to see how best we could help everyone. Everyone loves or has heard of Vistro at some point, and they say, it's super easy to order food, but I want something else, and I want what I I'm used to with Vistro, bring it to other services. And it's hard, like you said, there's no other service that we can just see, oh, well, this is how these guys did it. Maybe we could look at doing it. We basically have to build it ourselves, test it ourselves, and try to see how best to make it easy for everyone in Belize.
Yeah.
And that has been a very big challenge that has kept us up late at nights and just trying to see how best to make it work for everyone.
How many districts are you working in now?
I think it's 3 or 4. I think we're the only areas we're not in is like Toledo and the Keys.
Okay. And I know you've been innovating as you move along as the recipient in technology. Now you're adding a whole new level of service, literally.
Yes. We've been working on this service for the last year. It took a while to really find the idea how to do it. We are very excited to start slowly rolling this out in all our districts. It was a very challenging thing to do. Being able we were thinking as the pandemic came, there's a lot more deliveries in Belize City. It's a very high demand, and trying to keep up with demand it's its own mission in itself.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to provide the best service, but there's only so much we can do.
Yeah.
And so we said, well, I remember one of the team members said, well, we can look at the basic math concept, which is the distance between the shortest distance between two lines is 2 points is a straight line. So let's do that. And so we went up. We said, well, let's go up. And we've been working on that for the past year.
Now, clearly not everything can be delivered by drone. I don't know if I want my lunch hanging over the air. This is for select services, I'd imagine.
Yes, this is not something we're going to be rolling out for everyone and for every service. We were planning with the team. It's something more that it's a gradual thing, that as we gain the trust of customers, we'll be rolling out to more services. But we want to start with pharmacists to begin with. I think we can provide a very contactless delivery with people ordering prescriptions. And we want to start there before we start on something more complex as food. And we need bigger drones, and we're working on getting our permits for the bigger drones so that we can eventually get there. But it's a process that we are willing to push through.
And so there you have it. That is the 2020 Youth in Technology Award recipient. But let's bring it back to the nomination period. Clearly, what Aziel and his team has done with Vistro shows how young people can use technology to really help in filling a need.
Yeah.
And so it's people like him and others who are being creative that you're hoping will be nominated.
For sure. I mean, I have to go back to when he said that the first, I guess, idea of delivery that he has for the drone is pharmaceuticals, right? And I was just thinking how perfect that is in a time of COVID, where you have to avoid contact as much as possible. So for me, it's like, man, you're really filling that need at the perfect time.
So coming back to the nomination for the awards, how do people get their nominations in?
So there's an application form available online. Please have your nominator fill out the application form. They can deliver it to our offices countrywide, or they can email it to our email address, which is dyscommunications@gmail.com. And the deadline is Friday the 15th.
This Friday?
This Friday.
So you got to start thinking of the people you know and what they're doing. What's the age group that we're talking about?
14 to 29, that's our mandate that we work with. But I mean, when it comes to the application, I always encourage young people that are being nominated to try to put out the strongest application as possible. It's about how you sell yourself. So include those images, those videos that you did in the past, and really, really sell yourself as much as possible, because you're competing with people all over the country, and you could be perhaps a really great young person that's doing amazing work in your community, but if you're not able to sell that, then we won't know.
Yeah. And if I want to nominate someone without their knowing,
Yeah, you can nominate them without them knowing. They can know as well, so it doesn't really matter. Yeah.
All right, so October 15th, this Friday, get the nominations in. The main category is the age group, 14, you said?
14 to 29, you have to be a Belizean, and you fill out your nomination form and submit it by the 15th. And Youth Awards is the 6th of November. It will be virtual again this year, just like last year. We had our first virtual Youth Awards. Of course, because of COVID, we can't be gathering in person. I know one of the most favored parts of Youth Awards is the idea of getting all fancy and formal. You know, young people can put on those gowns and suits and all of that. But we're going virtual again this year.
But you can still dress up at home.
Yeah, you can dress up. Yeah. And we will try our utmost best to put out an amazing show as usual. We are going to fill it with entertainment, and it's going to be really nice. So, yeah.
All right. So if you know a young person who's excelling in one of the many categories that we showed you earlier, get the nominations in by this Friday. And thank you all for coming in and telling us about what you're planning, and Aziel, the big developments as well.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for coming in. We're going to go ahead now and take our break, and when we come back, we'll have our wrap up. So stay tuned.
The Social Security Board, in collaboration with the Labor Department, takes this opportunity to remind insured persons of the requirements for compensation when on sick leave. Any employee who has worked with an employer for at least 2 months is entitled to 16 working days of sick leave with full pay every year. This is how it works. Upon approval of a sickness or injury benefit claim by SSB, 80% of the employee's weekly insurable earnings is paid as a Social Security benefit, and the difference in the employee's salary is paid by the employer. This is to ensure that the employee does not suffer any loss of wages when ill. After 16 days, compensation for sick leave is paid as a Social Security benefit only. Some conditions apply. This message is brought to you by the Social Security Board and the Labor Department. Social Security Board, safeguarding you, your family, your future.
Imagine going through your entire day without the burden and risk of carrying cash on you. Belize's shift to digital wallets has begun with eCash. We can now skip the cash when collecting money or paying for our essentials, all while using a fast, easy, and secure platform. Simply add funds to your wallet via bank transfer or at an agent, and you're good to go. You will be able to make quick, easy payments simply by scanning QR codes. And best of all, it all happens just like that. Payments are as easy as clicking a link online or scanning a QR code. Download the eCash app from the Google Play and Apple App Store today and take your first step into a cashless lifestyle. The future is here with eCash. For more information, visit www.e-cash.com or contact us via WhatsApp at 613-0257 to find out more.
Belize at 40. Hopeful hearts, steady hands, together we rise. The entire SMART family wishes all Belizeans a safe and happy September celebrations. SMART, bringing people together.
As one of the largest cable and internet providers in Belize, CBC strives to provide our customers with the highest standards of quality, value, and service in all aspects of cable TV and internet. Monitoring our systems closely, our technicians combine creative planning and state-of-the-art technology with years of experience and training to develop and provide the most reliable and advanced cable and internet service to exceed your expectations. For CBC and our team of talented engineers, technicians, and customer service representatives, delivering less than the very best is never an option.
And we're back.
We are back, Marlene. I'd like to use this opportunity to try to remind and encourage as many young people to get nominated.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea of the Youth Award is a wonderful initiative in terms of recognizing young men and women, young Belizean men and women who are doing things positively and meaningfully in their communities. Right? And so, again, you have until Friday to get the nominations in, the applications in. And so I encourage you guys to be able to do that. You know, get yourself recognized for the things you're doing.
I was telling you during the break, it's interesting because we always have people on the show and I say to myself, man, these people need to be recognized with something special. And the Youth Award is an opportunity for you to do so.
Yeah.
We always talk about what we can do, what we need to do to encourage young people in positive development, in managing their time, their energy, and their efforts in something constructive. And this is a great way to kind of give them that pat on the back and that boost of encouragement. We didn't talk about prizes that come with the award. I'm not sure what prizes, but I think just being acknowledged alone or recognized is definitely a great motivator. So you can find out more from the Department of Youth Services Facebook page about how you can go through that nomination process, whether you're a young person yourself or if you know a young person who deserves that type of recognition.
And of course, we're looking forward to the upcoming high season for tourism, albeit in the second year of battling COVID.
Yeah.
But by all accounts from the Ministry of Tourism and from the BTB, that the numbers are looking up in terms of the rebounding of the tourism sector.
Yeah, I think, we started off our show talking about COVID and looking at vaccination and keeping the transmission rate. And I think for me that was solidified in the tourism conversation for the simple fact that I remember having early conversations at the start of summer where things were really tracking in the right direction, exceeding the original projections of the region and even the local projections that were made. And then we went into our third wave.
Yeah.
And we started to see where, clearly it becomes an issue where stricter regulations are necessary. I know people in the sector who have to answer questions all the time about how do I know if I get there and they're not going to have a stricter curfew? I don't want to travel from the United States, for example, where I have no restrictions and have to be in my hotel room by 7 p.m.
In the name of vacation.
Yeah, on a vacation. So I think we do have to recognize how this does have an impact beyond that. And clearly, as we heard the CEO, we were talking about the vaccination and restaurant mandate, and then when you put it into perspective, if you have 25% of the hotel tourists coming into the country who are unvaccinated, or if I'm vaccinated but my child's not vaccinated, what does that mean about our dine-out experience in the tourism destination that I'm at? So really interesting points brought up this morning. It seems that they're working towards some sort of solution. But once again, putting into perspective one more reason why we need to get things under control with COVID.
Definitely.
Yeah. All right, but that's all the time we have for today. If you would like to contact us, send us an email at oye@channel5belize.com. You can also find us on Facebook at OpenYourEyesBZ and on Instagram at OYEBelize. Remember to tune in tomorrow morning at 6:30 when you open your eyes
to start your morning right.
Until then, keep your eyes, your mind,
and your hearts open.
We'll see you soon. Enjoy your day.
Open Your Eyes was brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.